So how do you do all that you do? What are some productivity tips that you'd love to share?
Surround yourself with really good people, hire really well, marry very well. Also, I think you just need to prioritize. I really believe in the 80-20 rule. I really believe that 20% of what you do moves the needle. So you don't need to get 100% done. You just need to do the 20% that's really important. Every day, I'll write a list of everything I want to achieve. And I just make sure I get 3 really big things done. So just trying to make it simple, not be so hard on yourself.
Hello and welcome to Make It Work, the bi-weekly podcast where we uncover inspiring stories of modern working mamas in Asia who have redefined their career paths whilst putting family first.
Hi folks, I'm your host, Sarah Wong. Today, my guest is Chris Edwards, an Australian mom of 3 and founder and CEO of digital lifestyle platform Honeycombers and Launchpad, a community for socially conscious business owners. I personally love using Honeycombers to find out about the latest events, kids' performances, and other happenings in Singapore, so I was really excited to speak with Chris herself. In this episode, Chris shares her incredible journey as an expat who started a business that grew into 4 successful ventures in Singapore over 15 years, all whilst adding 3 little humans to the mix. She opens up about her moments of personal crisis, how she effectively retired her husband a couple years ago, and what life looks like now living on a farm in Byron Bay, Australia. From practical parenting tips to advice on finding good people in your life, this conversation is packed with valuable insights. Last but not least, I have an exciting announcement for you. Chris is extending a special promotion to listeners of Make It Work for a free 1-month pass to join the Launchpad community. Use the code MAKEITWORK for access. Now for our episode.
Hey, Sarah, how are you?
I'm great. I am so excited and thankful that I managed to get you. It's been a really exciting process for me just talking with you and learning about all what you've done and the work that lays before you that you are going to be sharing with us about as well today. Before we dive in, let's hear about you and your story in 2 minutes or less.
All right. I love it. So my name's Chris Edwards, and I'm currently the founder and CEO of Honeycombers and also Launchpad. I founded 15 years ago, and Launchpad I founded 2 years ago. And prior to those businesses, I actually had a background in marketing, and I lived and worked in Australia marketing. And then I moved to Singapore and lived in Singapore for 11 years. And that's where I had my 3 babies. And yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Yeah. And I know that you have a fun fact that you love tennis and pottery.
And yeah, I play tennis at least once, probably more like 3 times a week. And I'm a little bit obsessed about pottery at the minute. So I do a pottery class every week. And I also do some making on the weekends. Like, yeah, my kids are like, oh, mom's in a pottery stage, look out. But I go through little creative bits and bursts. And yeah, they're telling me I'm knee deep in my pottery stage right now. You know what? My family's all like, how long until mom starts a pottery business? And I'm like, no, pottery is not working.
Actually, that's quite an interesting insight about how you love creating things. And I mean, that's been part of your whole journey, right? Since coming to Singapore as an expat. But, before we go into that, you just want to get a sense of how you spend your day or your week right now and what kind of season of life are you in?
Oh, I'm in a very good season. I think the seasons get better and better as you get older. So how do I spend my days, my week? So I always start with fun things in the morning. So this morning I played tennis for 2 hours and I started work today, probably about midday, and I'll finish just after this. So it'll be a short day for me. And yeah, I work generally about 4 days a week. My whole team at Honeycombers and Launchpad, they only do a 4.5-day work week. So we're all, really, really value the work-life balance or life-work balance. I think it's really important in my businesses and got a lot of things outside of work that I like to spend time on, including my kids, that I feel like right now they're 14, 12 and 9 and they really need me more than ever. So having a lot of time with them is really my priority for me.
So it must be really nice that in this season of life where you have a little bit more time to be around physically and emotionally, I guess, that you're also able to give that to your family. But I mean, you're juggling so many things as it is. You have your established business, Honeycombers, Honey Kids, and all the honeys, and a Launchpad, the community of entrepreneurs. So how do you do all that you do? What are some productivity tips that you'd love to share?
Surround yourself with really good people. So hire really well, marry very well, make sure you've got a husband that's very supportive. Also, I think you just need to prioritize. You need to know what's going to move the needle. I really believe in the 80-20 rule. I really believe that 20% of what you do moves the needle. So you don't need to get 100% done. You just need to do the 20% that's really important. And that's about prioritization. So I do a lot of list making. Every day I'll write a list of everything I want to achieve that day. And I just make sure I get 3 really big things done. And so just trying to make it simple, not be so hard on yourself. Know that if you just get your focus on the 20%, the right 20%, that everything else will follow. And yeah, writing lists, crossing things off, feeling good about getting stuff done. They're all the things that have really worked for me.
Yeah, I get the whole list thing. The thing is, I write so many, and I'm not like you. I don't have that. I just need to do 3. So do you keep to that really strictly? And how do you not feel sort of accomplished if you don't finish, the 3 even?
I need to think really deeply about, of everything I have to do today, what's going to have the biggest impact on driving my business or whatever it is that you're working on forward. So very thinking deeply about that prioritization. And if you are doing the work that's going to have the real impact, then you should feel happy with yourself. But yeah, I think it is about just not being too hard on yourself, especially as a young mum, because work's only one part of your life equation. You've also got, if you got one really good thing done at work, but then had a really great afternoon with your child where you were able to teach them something, or even just make a memory, like a core memory that they can reflect on, then that's a great day in my book. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I like that. I think it does speak to me in terms of not focusing on maybe just one category, but realizing that as a whole in a day, there's so many roles we play, and it might not be 100% for anyone, but maybe sometimes 50-50 or 60-60 in the different roles is good enough, and to be kind to ourselves.
Yeah, exactly right. And I also think when we're 65 or 70, we're never going to look back and think, gee, I wish I worked harder. Like I just don't think we're going to think that. I think we're going to look back and say, I wish I treasured that time with my kids, because and even now I see people who are getting pregnant or having new babies, and like my kids are still very much kids. But I look at those people and I go, oh, I'm so envious. I won't have that again. And once you've done it, it's gone. Like you've got the photos, you've got the memories, but you don't get to really do it again. As much as it's really hard when you're in the young years. I remember how bad the tiredness was. That was the hardest thing for me. Just that sheer broken sleep and lack of sleep. Some days just feeling like you're just counting down the clock because you just want to get back into bed. I really remember that very clearly. And also with the tiredness, like the emotional, I suppose it's like, what is the word for it? Roller coaster. Like you don't really have control of your emotions as easily when you're tired. And so, I would cry from just lack of sleep.
You just don't know everything that you're gonna go through as a mom before, and then even with multiple kids, I guess everyone is different as well, and you're in different kind of stage of your work. So things keep changing, and that's what I realized. I can only really respond. Very little I can control, but it's the responding and reminding myself that it's the long game. It's helpful too. Yeah. So for you, Chris, how did becoming a mother change your perspective and your approach to work? Because you started your company when you were, I guess, without kids, and then you had 3 kids very quickly shortly after. Talk about that.
Look, I think I always knew I wanted lots of kids, and I think I was really ambitious before I had kids. And I remember very clearly when I started Honeycombers, I didn't have any kids. And I set it up as a WordPress site in the back end with all the countries of Southeast Asia in the back end. And I was going to do Honeycombers, Bangkok and Honeycombers, Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh. And I was like, I'm going to dominate Southeast Asia. And I remember it really clearly when I did my first site revamp. I said to the developer, you can take all those countries away. I'm not doing it. But yeah, it was really interesting. I had evidence of how I had this ambition and naivety. And then once I became a parent, and also I suppose realized the enormity of the job of creating a city guide, that I was like, no, I don't need to take over the world. I don't aspire to be tone out for Southeast Asia. I just want to have a really nice business that affords me a lifestyle that I love, work-life balance, I think. And yeah, I mean, I pretty much did Honeycombers part-time the whole way through. And my husband was incredibly supportive. And to this day, so he stopped work 2 years ago and he's the hands-on parent at home. So I definitely would not have had the success that I've had without him happy to step up and play that role and really support the family. And even before he stepped out of work, he was very supportive and, I think unusually so for a bloke. When I was breastfeeding through the night, he would bring our baby in the room and bring him to me rather than me getting out of the bed. And I would let the kid latch and then I'd pass the baby back and he would birth the baby and put the baby back in.
Was that for all three?
All three. Because he also, he's just a
World's best.
Yeah, a world's best dad, literally, yeah. But also he just knew I could not cope with the tiredness, whereas he needed less sleep. And he was like, what can I do to help, And yeah, so look, I do think if you can surround yourself with really good people, that makes a big difference as to, what you can achieve and what you can get done and how you feel about life. And, if you have people that aren't as supportive, it really can affect you, and I don't mean just partners, but even just people that say negative things, like negative Nazis in your life. Like I really think that's very damaging to your self-agency.
I keep hearing this theme of finding good people, whether it's your spouse or in business, in building your village, at home. It's important. I think we all know that. I don't think people set out to look out for negative people. So maybe talk a little bit about what were some things that you did to intentionally find these good people, whether it's at home or at work.
Yeah, good question. So I think when you find good people, it's really important to foster and nurture that relationship. Like friends that are remarkably great people, you want to put the effort in. And what I mean by that is if you haven't spoken to a friend for a long time and you kind of get to that awkward stage where you're like, oh, I really haven't spoken to her for months, maybe years. Like, do you pick up the phone and call her or do you just go, that'd be weird. I haven't spoken to her for ages. I'll just let it go. And I suppose in those moments, it's like, you know what, just take the risk and make the call and reach out because that connection and that relationship, it's all worth it. And I think we underestimate the power of the friendships and the networks. No one in their right mind doesn't love a call out of the blue from someone who just said, hey, I'm just thinking about you. Everyone loves that. But I think we limit ourselves and everyone has limiting beliefs, right? So I suppose putting in the effort, investing in your relationships, your new friendships and your old friendships, taking your time out to go and meet new people and get engaged in things where you're going to meet new people, whether it's going to events or just taking that time and valuing relationships, I suppose. I think we don't really think about how valuable relationships are until we don't have them and we're lonely, right? Or surrounded by people that are not wildly positive or, so it's definitely leading to positive relationships. I love the stat, or it's not a stat, of the saying that's you're the sum of your 4 closest friends. And I do think, like, if you were to say, who are your 4 closest friends right now? Do you want to be those people? Or do you aspire to be around people that are more creative or more ambitious or doing wilder things. And then where do you go and find those people and lean into it? Does that make sense?
Yeah. And is there any good example from as you're talking about this, is there someone that you're thinking about or some kind of community that you've found?
Yeah, I suppose without it sounding too contrived, I mean, that's kind of why I created Launchpad, the community that I created, which is about 450 members in Singapore now. So Launchpad is a community of conscious ethical entrepreneurs, people that are entrepreneurs like myself that are trying to do it better and differently and more consciously with the planet and people in mind. So it's not profit at all costs. It's thinking about the people that work for you and thinking about the impact on the planet. So I'm trying with that community to gather like-minded entrepreneurs so that they can all meet each other and lift each other up. So that's exactly what I tried to do with Launchpad.
No, yeah, that was my segue for you as well to talk about Launchpad, which I think it's a great community. I know you've offered me that 1 month trial, which I will when I get the time to join. But I heard about your lessons that you shared on your podcast and growing it to 700 member strong community now, and it sounds really great, especially for entrepreneurs being quite a lonely journey to be able to do that. And all power to you because you're also doing it remotely.
Yeah, I know. Again, you wouldn't plan to start a business in another country, but yeah, it's kind of worked. And I do get up to Singapore. I was there last week. We ran an event. Yeah. So we're very active and I try and get up there every 3 months or so.
Well, talking about good people, your husband's obviously one. And you talked a little bit about how he has basically stopped working in the past 2 years. So you've retired your husband. That's really, really exciting. Can you talk about some learnings and observations in that process?
Retiring my husband, making him the happiest husband on earth. So it actually happened in the middle of COVID. We were homeschooling the 3 kids. And at the time, my businesses weren't going very well at all. Our revenues had pretty much stopped because no one wants to advertise their restaurant if they legally can't have people in their restaurant. So it was a really scary moment in time. And it was a really big leap of faith. But it's worked out really well. And I'm super glad I took the leap. But it was incredibly scary. Yeah, could have gone either way. I mean, someone once said to me, the difference between success and failure is razor thin. And I do believe that, I do believe there's a lot of good timing, bit of luck. But yeah, I had very good people on my team that really worked very hard along, and I did as well. I mean, we were really nose to the grindstone to make sure that we could keep the lights on and make sure that we could make it through. But yeah, I mean, COVID has made us a better business. So we've come out the other side, better, more profitable, smaller team. But yeah, working really well. So yeah, it was a journey, but it works so well now. And yeah, my husband's happily right now looking after my kids. One's doing tennis and one's doing basketball. So he's like taxi mom.
Wow, he does sound like world's best and maybe world's happiest dad at this point.
Yes, well, sometimes when the kids are good, it's all working.
That's so great. And actually, you talked a little bit about now he's being the house husband in that sense. So can you talk a little bit about the roles that you all play and how do you all agree on, okay, you're going to be the taxi dad and I'll be the one sort of in the office and you give me a good meal. Yeah, like how do you all work that out?
Well,
and especially with challenges or differences, how do you all overcome that?
Yeah, we haven't had too many challenges. He likes cooking. He's always enjoyed cooking. So he doesn't find that a chore. He also really enjoys doing the kids' stuff. He was coaching the kids' soccer teams for a long time. But yeah, no, he gets a lot of time to surf. So I think he's happy. But yeah, he basically, I think if you asked him, he would say his remit is he organizes the food and the lunches and organizes the dinners. He does the weekly shops. We don't have help like we used to in Singapore. So it's just the 2 of us with the kids. And then he organizes all the kids' sport and he also does homework with the kids. And then, I usually work from midday till about 6 o'clock, and I'll come out at 6, and dinner will be on the table. It's going to be a dream. And the kids have usually done their homework, and then we sit down and have dinner. And it's kind of, that all works. And we do share, probably we share the washing. I quite like to keep on top of the washing. And it just seems to work. I mean, we live quite a big property, so there's lots to do on the property as well. So there's lots of farming and chickens and, gardening and things like that, which he enjoys.
Yes, we forgot to add that you do live on a farm in Byron Bay.
It's a small hobby farm, so it's like we've got 60 cows, so it's small.
Well, talking about, Singapore and Australia, you lived in Singapore for 11 years and all your kids are born there. What were the big differences that you've seen raising kids there versus in where you are now? And what are some observations you've
Well, look, I suppose the biggest difference is just having help. We have a wonderful helper, Sylvia, who worked for us for 8 years. And so that was really amazing help. I think the biggest other difference is just the urbanness of Singapore versus where we're living now. So, where I live, there's no shopping centres. So you just don't have that option, which I quite like. So it's just less kind of shopping as a form of entertainment doesn't really happen here. And I suppose where I live, it's a lot more, not really remote, but just not as connected. So on the weekend, I would have played Monopoly with my children for probably about 3 or 4 hours and played tennis. Just did things, doing a lot of time with them. It's kind of a bit slower pace here, which I really enjoy.
And that's probably one of the big reasons why you moved back as well, to enjoy a slightly different, slower pace of life.
Yes, and to be really close to family, such a big driver. And all my family live very close. So it's really nice.
Oh, great. And looking back at the time that you've spent in Singapore building the Honey Empire and with Launchpad and 3 kids in tow, any regrets or anything you have done differently at all?
No, I don't really believe in regrets. I think there's definitely been some hard times, but I think from every hard time, there's been an amazing learning. And so, I don't really regret anything. I think I've worked really hard, but I think I've also been very lucky. And I acknowledge that I've also come from a position of privilege. I've had the opportunity to start Honeycombers, and I didn't pay myself for 4 years. And that's because my husband was able to support me. And that's a really privileged position to be in. I've had a really wonderful journey and I feel very grateful. But do not believe in regrets.
Well, you've talked about challenging times a little bit and in different places, in different podcasts. Could you tell us again a little bit about that time with your third kid and how you were building the company and you were having your third kid? Talk a little bit about that challenging period.
So I've got 2 stories for you. The first one is when I found out I was pregnant. I had about 15 employees at the time. But I remember my most senior employee just looked at me and went, "How are you going to do this? Like, are you crazy? You're running a business. Everyone needs you here. And now you're going to have another baby." And I was like, "It's okay. I'll find a way." But my team actually thought I was mad. And then when I did have that baby, Darcy, his name is, he was 2 weeks old. And my very good friend, a school friend, rang me and said, "Congratulations, and how are you, and how's it all going?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's great. Thank you. All good." And she's like, "What are you doing now?" And I said, "I'm just driving into the office." And she said, "What do you mean you're driving into the office? You've just had a baby." And she really hit a raw nerve because what the heck was I doing? Why was I driving into the office? I had Darcy in the back seat because I was breastfeeding, and I was like, I have to bring him with me. And I just started bawling on the phone, and I just hung up on her. I just pretended like I was going through a tunnel. And I hung up, and I just pulled over. I was on Puketima Road, and I pulled over. I was just in tears, just going, "What the hell am I doing? Why am I doing this?" And I rang my husband, and he said, "Just come home. Just leave it for now. Come home. You can do it later." And I was like, "I can't just come home. I've got to do payroll." I didn't have anyone in the company who could have done payroll for me. I didn't have anyone running HR. I didn't have anyone in finance. Like, all of that was on me. And I was like, I need people to get paid. So I've got to get in there and process payroll. And so I just, cleared my eyes and took a couple of big breaths and got in there and did the payroll. And it's really a big moment, I think, because I realized at that point how far I'd pushed myself and how bad my planning was. I should have done better. This was baby number 3. But I think when I had my first 2 babies, I didn't have the head count. I think when I had my first baby, it was only me. The second baby, I think I only had 2 employees. But between baby number 2 and baby number 3, the business had really grown significantly. And it was a lot of responsibility. And I didn't have a coach. I didn't have anyone helping me out with how I could get help in my business that was affordable and easy to access. And I didn't know many other entrepreneurs either. I didn't know any entrepreneurs that were running startups and having babies, to be honest. So I didn't really have anyone go and ask for help. But that experience really was part of what motivated me to create Launchpad, because if I had Launchpad back then, I would have known that you can get like fractional CFOs and you can get part-time HR people, and I could have had solutions in place so that could have been a lot easier, and I might have been able to have a month off and that would have made a huge difference. But yeah, hindsight's a great thing. But that's what I mean by no regrets. That pain point led me to understand a real need, and that is entrepreneurs, other entrepreneurs, and particularly female entrepreneurs that are having babies and running companies and bringing up kids. Like, it's just a lot of challenges, but it doesn't have to be that hard. There are a lot of shortcuts, and people have found solutions before you. You don't need to work it all out on your own, which is the hardest way to do things. So don't do what I did.
Wow. No, thanks. This was a really good story, and it gives a lot of color to, the motivation and the driving force behind what you do and bringing other entrepreneurs together to learn and grow. I'm curious also if you had anything specific to say to working moms who are thinking about starting a business or are running their businesses.
I think we just need to be kind to ourselves. I think we're really hard on ourselves. And I want to say to moms, work can always wait. Work can always wait. And I think work is highly addictive. Like, if you're good at what you do and you get rewarded and, work's really nice. It makes you feel good. So I think it's to set some boundaries for yourself so you won't look back and go, I wish I didn't work too that hard, because we don't get the time back with our babies. We can always work more, and there's going to be plenty of time to work, but we only have a certain window with our kids. And I think now more than ever, our kids really need us. And I think it's really hard to be a kid in this digital age, especially a teenager. Even a 9-year-old, like my 9-year-old's like, I really want a phone. All my friends have phones, and he gets really anxious. And like there's a lot of support that needs to be there. And there's a lot of great support you can get for your kids and provide for your kids. It doesn't have to be all you, but you kind of have to know where they need the support. You need to be really in touch with them to know how you can help shape them and support them. And yeah, it's such a privilege, the opportunity to shape these little people. And I just think, be kind to yourself and don't miss out on that opportunity to really shape these kids to be the very best versions of themselves. That's deep.
Yes, I'm letting it just settle right now. Thanks, Chris. So a little bit tangential, but it's something that I heard you talk about. And I want to also hear if you have any examples about how you bring in some of your business tactics or strategy into your style of parenting, or any teaching moments that you've had with your kids where you're like, hey, this is actually something I practice back at work.
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing I have taught my kids is how to give constructive feedback. So I don't know if you've ever heard of the feedback sandwich. My house, it's called the mushroom sandwich because my kids don't like mushrooms. But it's been an amazing technique because my kids used to go, oh, I don't like this dinner. I don't want to eat it. And my husband would get really like, you need to eat at least half. And it'd be really like this really aggro moment between them all. And so I taught my kids how to give dad feedback about the dinner by starting with something positive, and then you can share your negative or the bit you don't like, and then end with something positive. So it's the sandwich of, and it's a HR training technique that we actually use at homes to teach people how to give feedback and reviews. Like, don't just blurt out the negative, like sandwich it with two positives. So my kids would then say, hey, Dad, I really love how much effort you've put into this dinner, but I really don't like mushrooms. But I really like the meat and the vegetables on this plate. He knew they were using the technique, but even still, he totally changed his approach. And rather than be upset by his feedback, he would be like, oh, I'm so glad you appreciate that I put a lot of effort into this. That's fine. Just leave the mushrooms and everything else. And, this whole situation that used to be really tense just got totally diffused by the kids being able to use this mushroom sandwich feedback technique. So yeah, that was really cool to be able to use something from work to teach the kids the power of constructive feedback and see how it really changed my husband's approach to the kids too. Like, he was just really forgiving and accepting because he loved the fact that they were trying to acknowledge the effort he put in. So yeah, it was really good.
I love that. I wonder if it works on 4-year-olds.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure it would. The other thing we do a lot at my house is at meal times, we use a rose and thorn conversation. I don't know if you know this one, but at dinner each night, everyone has to go around the table and share what was their rose of the day and then what was their thorn of the day. And it's a really just a good way for people to reflect on what was great about the day, as well as share what they didn't love or what they need help with during the day. And so that's actually I think that's a parenting technique that now I've put into Honeycomb as a launch pad. So we'll do it in meetings. So we do.
Oh, yeah.
So at work, we do rose, thorn, and bud. And the bud is your opportunity or the thing you're excited about. So but it really is
I like that.
great framework.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I mean, I've definitely heard of like highlight, low light, but with the bud, it gives something that you're looking forward to. So that's sort of dimension. I like it. Well, my kids love mushrooms, so I got to find something else like cucumber burger. Those days.
Yeah, well, that's good. Your kids like mushrooms. That's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, even I know.
Let me know how it goes. I mean, it works wonders for us. But yeah, I'm interested. It's such a great gift to be able to share these little skills, especially at such a young age.
Well, Chris, this has been a great conversation. Time has really flown, and I feel like we've gone so many places. I wish we could spend more time, maybe a part 2 another day. As we round out here, if listeners want to reach out to you, what are some things you love to, talk about or connect on?
Yeah, sure.
Well, yeah.
People can reach out directly to me. I'm probably easiest to find on Instagram. It's Chris_Edwards_AU. I love connecting with anyone who's running a business or parenting and juggling work. Really interested to connect on those fronts. They're also very welcome to check out Launchpad. So Launchpad is the launchpad.group if you want to have a look there. If you feel like any of those Launchpad or Honeycombers would be of value, check them out. Love to connect.
All right. Thank you so much for your time, Chris. I appreciate everything that you've shared. So many nuggets and learning points. Appreciate your time so much. Take care now.
Thanks for having me, Sarah.